What's good, everybody? It's the Cloud with Cap Show. We got college football week 12 towards the end of the season of college football. What a season, though. We cannot complain. Me being a Notre Dame fan, I could complain and say, oh, we should go undefeated every year. But Coach Kelly, what he's done for the program is nothing but great. Obviously, besides winning a national championship, he's done everything right. I do think eventually Notre Dame will win that national championship. Obviously, they're in the top 10, but they probably won't make the playoffs this year. That's just the reality of it. We got, obviously, Georgia at number 1, which Georgia right now, they're kind of like separating themselves from the whole pack. Even Alabama. I mean, we look at Georgia and say they do have the best defense. That's what we do know about Georgia. We do know that they can run the ball. They're starting to run it well right now. To whereas at the beginning of the season, Georgia was like, kind of one-dimensional on offense. But right now, they can really throw it and do a lot on the ground game. So Georgia right now, they're definitely the number 1 team in the country for a reason, and that starts with their defense. Then number 2, obviously, Bama. Now, if Bama does happen to get upset this weekend because they do play Arkansas, yes, Bama's out. There's no way a 2-loss Alabama team should get in the playoffs this year. There's no excuse. Cincinnati should jump Alabama if Bama does lose 2 games this season. The leverage, no. No. Alabama should not get any leverage of that. 2-loss Alabama team in the playoffs, that sounds ridiculous. No, absolutely not. If Alabama does lose before the college football playoffs, they're done. They're out of there. But they're at number 2. Then Oregon at number 3, well-deserved. Number 4, Ohio State. And then number 5, Cincinnati's on the outside looking in. And right now, let's say, the top 4, they win out. Yes, they will definitely all get in. But it's going to just be hard. I just think if Bama, they could possibly get upset eventually. So I think a 2-loss Alabama, they're out, dude. They are out of it. So I want to see Bama lose. I do. Who doesn't, right? Because obviously they won it this past year. Look, Alabama, they're winners. They are. Coach Saban, he's a winner whether you like him or not. No, he's not a winner in the NFL. We saw what he did with the Miami Dolphins. He was trash. So he's like, dude, I can't win in the NFL. Let me go back to college football and start dominating yet again. And that's what he did. So he listened to his gut. But, my Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they're in the top 10. They play Georgia Tech, their last home game this season. They're 17-point favorites. They should definitely win this game. And it starts with the quarterback, Jack Cohn. Over 2,000 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, only 5 picks. And then the X Factor, like I said, the best player on Notre Dame is definitely their running back, Kyron Williams. He's got 10 touchdowns this year. I think when he plays well, everybody else tends to play well on that Notre Dame team. They really do. So Kyron Williams, he's the heartbeat of that team. And I think, when he plays well, everybody else does. Georgia Tech, I don't really see them do much. Jeff Sims, he's got 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. But Georgia Tech, they've given up 30 points a game this year, dude. So, that tells me right there, Notre Dame should easily win this game. They should cover the 17. If you guys think that's too much, go money line. But I like Notre Dame here. I love Notre Dame at 17. I think, it tells us, hey, Notre Dame, they need to definitely win out. But I just think, looking at the bigger picture for Notre Dame, they're looking for next year. 2022, their schedule doesn't get any easier. They open up at Ohio State next year. So I can't wait to see what Coach Kelly has in store for Notre Dame, because he has to understand, man, every game is a playoff game for Coach Kelly. It is for Notre Dame. If we look at it this year and say, yeah, if he did win the Cincinnati game, yes, we'd be in the top 4. He understands that. But I just think looking at the bigger picture, Coach Kelly understands what's at stake here. Not just this game. I'm talking next year and the next year after that, the next decade, during this decade right now. So I just think for Coach Kelly, he's on the right path. I just think for Notre Dame, yes, we do want to see us to win a national championship. Hasn't been since 1988, dude. I didn't even exist then, dude. That's how long it was. So, Notre Dame, we are overdue, but I like Notre Dame all day against Georgia Tech. 58.5 is the over-under. I'd probably go with the under because I don't see Georgia Tech really scoring that much, but I love Notre Dame at 17 all day, baby. Go Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Ba 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 ba. Let's go Notre Dame. Then we have Georgia playing who? I never heard of the team. Charleston Southern. Who is that? That's what I'm telling you guys. Like the SEC, yes, they are one of the toughest conferences in college football, but it's like some of these teams, they play a bunch of nobodies. Same thing with Alabama. They got some nobodies on their schedule. Same thing with Georgia. I never heard of this squad before, but look, Georgia, they should definitely win this game. They should blow them out. Like I said, Georgia is the number 1 team in the country for a reason. It starts with their defense. They've only given up 6 points per game. So that's crazy, let alone Stetson Bennett, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks this year. Zymeir White, he's got 9 touchdowns. It's all Georgia. I like Georgia. I like Georgia to cover. I love Georgia. Okay, if I were to pick a national championship, champion, it would be Georgia. It would be, because it starts with their defense. And the old cliche is still right yet today in 2021. Defense does win championships. And I'm telling you right now, nobody wants to face Georgia. Definitely not the 4 seed right now. Ohio State, if they play Georgia, they don't want to play Georgia right now. I'll tell you that right now. Ohio State wants to see Bama lose, so Ohio State can maybe get to 2 or maybe 2, maybe 3, but they don't want to play Georgia. Nobody does. Not even Bama. But I love Georgia. I think they're going to blow them out. They might even shut them out. Like I said, I never heard of this squad. So, I love Georgia all day here. Then we got one of the biggest games all weekend, Michigan State versus Ohio State. Ohio State's 19-point favorites. And to me right there, it's kind of like, man, 19? It's like we understand, yes, Michigan State had a cough-up game against Purdue. But other than that, it's like, dude, Michigan State's look really nice. So I think this spread right here is definitely a sucker bet if you go the 19. I think that is way too much. I think that's really disrespect to Michigan State and Peyton Thorne. He's got 21 touchdowns, 8 picks, 2,460 yards passing. But the X factor for Michigan State is their running back, Kenneth Walker. He's got 1,473 yards rushing and 17 touchdowns. If I were to choose a Heisman, he would be the Heisman guy. I mean, every game this year he's been dominating. He's been playing well. Really hasn't took a weekend off. So I think, for Michigan State, I do think this is a game where if Michigan State does beat Ohio State, I do think Michigan State will get back in that top 4. We saw them already in the number 3, I believe it was. Maybe number 2. I think it was number 3. Then they lost to Purdue. But it's like, we can't just disrespect Purdue. I mean, they beat Iowa this year. Okay, so it wasn't just like a cakewalk game. And then Jaden Reed, he's got 829 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. I think Michigan State, this is the game right here where, it's all for the marbles. Same thing with Ohio State. Everything in this game right here is coming down to the playoffs. This game. So, C.J. Stroud over 3,000 yards passing, 30 touchdowns, only 5 picks. He's a baller. Trayvon Henderson, he's got over 1,000 yards rushing and 14 touchdowns. I think really ultimately looking at this matchup, I do think it's almost a coin flip game. Yes, I would give the edge to Ohio State. They're playing at home. But I think the 19 points is just way too much. I think it's really disrespect, and I think Michigan State, if they do want to win this game, they're going to have to put pressure on C.J. Stroud. They're going to have to, cause him to have problems. And then obviously on the offensive side, Peyton Thorne's going to have to play well, no interceptions. And I expect, Michigan State to utilize Kenneth Walker yet again. I expect Kenneth Walker to have another big game. I think Kenneth Walker and Michigan State, the whole team, they circle this game and realize this is the biggest game of our season right here. And they understand that if Michigan State goes into Ohio State and beats Ohio State at Ohio State, they will definitely get in the top 4. I do believe they should jump Cincinnati. I know it doesn't sound fair. Cincinnati's schedule's really weak. I just think for Michigan State, if they do really beat Ohio State, man, it could happen. I'm not going to go Ohio State at 19. If anything, go money line Ohio State. But you know what? I'm going to go with the upset in Michigan State here. Why am I choosing Michigan State? Because of their defense. I do think their defense needs to step up here and cause problems for C.J. Stroud. And I think for Michigan State, if Kenneth Walker plays like he's been playing, I do think, Michigan State's going to roll on here. I really do. And I think for Ohio State, they're going to really team up on Kenneth Walker to stop the run. So I think for Peyton Thorne, the play action for Michigan State's going to be big time here. If you guys want this to work, the play action to work here, this is the game. Because I do think Ohio State's going to really stack in the box, 8-9 in the box to stop Kenneth Walker. Because do you want him to rush for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns? I don't think so. But you know what? I'm going with the upset. I'm going Michigan State over Ohio State. I know this might sound like a kamikaze pick, but I'm telling you what, upsets do happen, and I love Michigan State over Ohio State, baby. 68.5 is the over-under. You guys can decide that. I'd probably go with the under, but I love Michigan State with the upset. Then we got Wake Forest versus Clemson. Clemson's 4.5-point favorites. Look, Wake Forest, they've had a great year this year. And I think they can come into Clemson and really beat Clemson this year. Because let's be honest, Clemson's not the same team that we're used to seeing in the past 5 years. They're not, dude. And it starts with DJ. Their quarterback, I do think he's not a good quarterback. He's got 8 touchdowns, 7 picks this year. I don't think it's enough. I really don't. Will Shipley's got 7 touchdowns this year for Clemson. But I think Wake Forest, if they do want to win this game, it starts with the quarterback, Sam Hartman. He's got 3,163 yards passing, 30 touchdowns, only 8 picks this year. So I think for Sam Hartman, he understands what's at stake here. He understands that if they do lose to Clemson, it's not going to look good. You guys played well all season, only have 1 loss leading up to this game. So I think for them, dude, I like Wake Forest here with the upset. A.T. Perry, 918 yards receiving and 11 touchdowns. Look, I like Wake Forest. Why? Because of Sam Hartman in that quarterback play. I do think he's going to spread out Clemson and really pick apart Clemson. I mean, Clemson, they are human this year. They've lost 3 games, and that's really unheard of for Clemson, right, dude? We're used to seeing Clemson go undefeated, like straight up. So I like Wake Forest with the upset. 56.5 is the over-under. Look, I'll probably go with the under as well. I'm going with a lot of unders this weekend, but I love Wake Forest and Sam Hartman. Go Wake Forest with the upset. Then we got Iowa State versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma's 3.5-point favorites. We saw Oklahoma lose last week to Baylor. Look, Oklahoma right now, they don't really know who they are. Spencer Rattler came in. Really, the body language wasn't right. Caleb Williams isn't playing like he has been playing earlier this year. I just think for Oklahoma, this is the time to beat Oklahoma. When they're on their heels, they just lost a game. They can't really identify themselves right now. So you know what? I'm going with the upset. Iowa State yet again. I think Brock Purdy, he's going to have a big game. 15 touchdowns, only 6 picks. But I think the X factor for Iowa State's their running back, Breece Hall. 1,172 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns. I think you're going to run all over Oklahoma. Oklahoma's defense is weak, dude. They've given up 24.5 points a game, dude. 24.5, dude. That's crazy, dude. That's JV level. So I love Iowa State with the upset here. 59.5 is the over-under. I'd probably go with the over. I think this game's going to be high scoring. I really do. I like Iowa State. I think Brock and Breece are the X factors here to success, to upset Oklahoma at Oklahoma. So I like Iowa State with the upset. Then we got Illinois versus Iowa. Iowa's 12.5-point favorites. Look, Spencer Padres, he's got 9 touchdowns, 6 picks, 1,430 yards passing. Tyler Goodson, 813 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. Look, for Illinois, they're going to Archer, their quarterback, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks. Chase Brown, 851 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. I just think for Illinois, their weakness is their defense, giving up 21.5 points a game. I just think this game is going to be a little closer than what they're saying, but I will take Iowa. I will take Iowa at home. I mean, we saw Illinois get a couple big upsets this year. I just don't see it happening. I think Iowa's going to stick to the ground with Tyler Goodson and stick to what they're good at, their offensive line, beating that front 7. So I like Iowa over Illinois in this matchup. Then we got Arkansas versus Bama. Bama, man, is 20.5-point favorites. Look, this is an easy cakewalk game for Alabama. It's not. And this could really be an upset alert game if we look at it. Arkansas, KJ Jefferson, 1,990 yards passing, 17 touchdowns, only 3 picks. Treylon Burks, he's got 796 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. Look, I'm telling you what, Arkansas can put up points. And they can put up points on anybody. I think this game is definitely going to be the over. 58.5 is the over-under. But look, we have to give Alabama some respect. Bryce Young, over 3,000 yards passing, 33 touchdowns, only 3 picks. He's a lefty. He can pass, and he can run as well. I think his running game is definitely underrated. Brian Robinson Jr., 823 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns. And Bama's defense, they have improved over the weeks, but still, I still think they can be exploited. And I think, Alabama at 20.5 is just too high. I would not do that. If anything, I'll go Bama, but I'll go money line Bama. I think the 20.5 is way too much on the spread. I think that's really disrespecting Arkansas. I think Arkansas can play against anybody. After all, they are an SEC team. KJ Jefferson's no joke. I think he's going to have the game of his life for this game to be close. I do think this game is really going to be close, but I like Bama in the end. I do. I like Bama money line all day. Roll Tide. Then we got SMU versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati 10-point favorites. Desmond Ryder, 2,425 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, only 6 picks. Their running back, Jerome Ford, he will probably miss yet another game, which isn't great news for Cincinnati. Look, for Cincinnati, we have to understand, yes, their schedule is weak. Is that their fault? No, not partially their fault. I just think for the college football, what they're looking at is strength of schedule. And Cincinnati's strength of schedule this year is probably, I believe it was 100th overall, and that's just not cutting it. If they could get other good games, I don't know. I think Cincinnati, they might be on the outside looking in when it comes to college football playoffs. I really do. Do I feel sorry for Cincinnati? No, not at all. I just think, your guys' schedule is weak after all. I mean, SMU, and then you had, Notre Dame? That's it? You know what I'm saying? They have to have bigger games than that. They really do. I just think, for SMU, yes, they're going to have to come out and play. Danny Gray, their star receiver, he is questionable for SMU with a leg injury. But SMU, they've given up 26 points a game. I mean, dude, that's terrible, too. So, obviously, I'm going to go Cincinnati here, Bearcats at 10. If they can't cover the 10 and only win by a touchdown, I think we understand that, hey, Cincinnati will be on the outside looking in. They will not get the 4th seed. I just think for Cincinnati, you guys should be killing every game you guys play. In the past month, it hasn't been that way. These teams, they've only beat their teams by, less than what they've covered to beat. So I just think for Cincinnati, it is an uphill battle. But, I'll go Cincinnati at 10 all day. 65 is the over-under. You guys could decide that, but I love Cincinnati Bearcats with the dub this game. Then we got Michigan versus Maryland. Michigan is 15.5-point favorites. Cade McNamara, he's got 1,883 yards passing with 12 touchdowns, only 2 picks. Hassan Haskins, he's got 985 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. I think it's all Michigan here. I like Michigan. I think Michigan, they know what's at stake. Obviously, the last game of the season, they play Ohio State, the biggest game of the year. So, Michigan, they're every game for them right now is a playoff game. They understand that. Jim Harbaugh understands that, and he understands that if he does lose to Ohio State, he's probably going to get fired. I think, Harbaugh should have been fired a couple years ago. Hasn't even beat Ohio State. What's the point of being a Michigan Wolverine coach if you can't beat Ohio State? That's a head-scratcher there. I have no clue, but I think, for Maryland, Tua, he's going to have a breakout game, over 3,000 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Talia, I think, for Maryland, they've given up 31 points a game. That's not cutting it. I like Michigan all day here. I'll take the 15.5. I'll be surprised if only Michigan wins by a touchdown. I really would, but Michigan, like I said, every game's a playoff game from here on out. Then we got Nebraska versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 9.5-point favorites. Graham Mertz, 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions this year. And Braylon Allen, 834 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns for Wisconsin. I think for Nebraska, Adrian Martinez, he's the X factor here. 25 touchdowns, only 2 picks. He has 124 carries, over 500 yards rushing, and 12 rushing touchdowns. I think for Nebraska, man, yes, they've given up 21 points a game, but you know what? I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go Nebraska over Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's quarterback play, Graham Mertz, all year has definitely been inconsistent and wishy-washy. Therefore, I'm going Nebraska with the upset. I expect Adrian Martinez to have a breakout game here like he's always had this year and really ball out. I love Nebraska with the upset game-winning field goal. Then we got Virginia versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's 14.5-point favorites. Kenny Pickett, 35 touchdowns, only 7 picks this year, dude. Or excuse me, 32 touchdowns, only 4 picks this year. He's got 3,517 yards passing, dude. He's crazy, man. Kenny Pickett, I do believe we will see him playing on Sundays, no doubt about it. His favorite target, Jordan Addison. He's got over 1,000 yards receiving and 11 touchdowns. I think it's going to be all Pittsburgh here. Playing at home, 14.5, I'll take it. I really was leaning more towards the money line pick, but I just think for Virginia, Armstrong, he's got over 3,500 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Yes, they are nice. Wicks, he's got over 1,000 yards receiving and 9 touchdowns. I just think for Virginia, they've given up 30.5 points a game. Dude, that is terrible, dude. Therefore, I'm going with Pittsburgh at home. I think Kenny Pickett's going to have another great game here and really throw for about 3 to 4 touchdown passes. It's all going to be Pittsburgh here. 66 is the over-under. I'll probably go with the over, but I love Pittsburgh here all day. Then we got Syracuse versus NC State. NC State, Devin Learney, he's got 2,883 yards passing with 29 touchdowns, only 5 picks. I like NC State here. I think they've been more battle-tested. Syracuse, Garrett Schrader, he's got 1,165 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, only 3 picks. Sean Tucker, he's got 1,362 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. I think for Syracuse, they've given up about 24.5 points a game. I think their defense is exploitable, and I think Devin Learney understands that, and he's going to exploit them. I love NC State at 11. I'll take NC State all day. And after all, NC State did beat Clemson this year in a huge upset. So I love NC State. Then we got Baylor versus Kansas State. We saw last week Baylor upset Oklahoma 27-14. And I think, for Kansas State being a 1-point favorite, I do think this is more of a coin flip game. But you know what? I'm going to go Baylor. Why? Because they did beat Oklahoma last week. They've had some big games this year. Gary Bohannon, over 2,000 yards passing with 16 touchdowns, only 6 picks. Abraham Smith, he's got 1,203 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. And then Taquan Thornton, he's got 763 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. I think it's going to be all Baylor here. I think for Kansas State, Skylar Thompson, he's got 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's going to have a big game. No interceptions. If he throws a couple interceptions, I think that's it. I think it's going to be all Baylor here. Deuce Vaughn, he's got 987 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns for Kansas State. I do think Kansas State's going to be in this game, but I love Baylor at the end to pull it away. I'll take Baylor all day here. 50 is the over-under. I'd probably go with the over, but I love Baylor in this matchup. Then we got Oregon versus Utah. Utah's 3-point favorites coming in. I think for Oregon, this is definitely not an easy game. I think this could be an upset game for Oregon. Excuse me, I really do. I think for Oregon right now, you guys are the 3 team in the country. I think, dude, if you guys do lose, it's it, dude. Your season is completely over. I think for Oregon, Anthony Brown over 2,000 yards passing with 12 touchdowns, only 4 picks this year. I think for, and then Travis Dye, he's got over 900 yards passing with 12 touchdowns for Oregon. That's what COVID will do for you, man. I hate COVID. And then Oregon, they've given up about 23 points a game. I don't think that's cutting it. I think that's terrible for Oregon. I think for you guys to win a national championship giving up 23 points a game, man, that is terrible, dude. And I think, for Oregon right now, if you guys do lose this game, man, hey, it's it. Oregon, Cameron Rising, he's got over 1,700 yards passing with 14 touchdowns, only 2 picks. And then Tyron Thomas, he's got 14 touchdowns. For Utah, he's questionable. And Utah's defense isn't really good as well. They've given up about 24 points a game. I think this is really a coin flip game, but I am ultimately surprised that Utah is definitely favoring this matchup. I mean, dude, Oregon's number 3 team in the country. If today was the playoffs, they would be in the playoffs. So I don't understand why Utah is the favorite. But you know what? I'm going to go Oregon here. I think Oregon knows what's at stake. They understand everything's leading up to this game. And I think Anthony Brown's going to have a breakout game here. Over 2,000 yards passing this year. That's no joke. And I think Travis Dye's going to have a big game. So I like Oregon all day here. 59 is the over-under. I'd probably go with the under, but I love Oregon all day here. Then we got Vanderbilt versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 36.5-point favorites, which is crazy. I mean, Vanderbilt, they're 2-8 this year. They're terrible. Ken Seals, he's out. For Ole Miss, Matt Carroll, 2,774 yards passing with 17 touchdowns, only 2 picks. And then Drummond, he's got 7 touchdowns, only over 700 yards receiving for Ole Miss. I think it's going to be all Ole Miss here. I think, 36.5 is definitely a lot. I would go money line Ole Miss, though. I think for Matt Carroll, he understands that, hey, we're playing a really piss-poor team, a 2-win team here. So I love Ole Miss all day here, all day. So I'll take Ole Miss. Then we got Oklahoma State versus Texas Tech. Oklahoma State's 10-point favorites, and I'll take Oklahoma State this year. I think Oklahoma State, man, they could really be undefeated right now. They've only lost 1 game this year. Spencer Sanders, over 1,700 yards passing with 14 touchdowns, only 6 picks. And then Jalen Warren, he's got over 1,000 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns. I think it's going to be all Oklahoma State here. I think for Texas Tech, Henry Colombi, he's got 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I just think for Texas Tech, giving up 33.5 points a game, dude, that is terrible, man. 33.5, dude, that's a lot. I think it's all Oklahoma State here. I think Spencer Sanders is going to have a great game. I'll take Oklahoma State at 10 all day. I'll take that all day. But, the biggest game overall this weekend in college football is definitely the Michigan State-Ohio State game. That game is definitely the biggest game of them all. And I think for Michigan State, I do think it's really disrespect that Ohio State's 19-point favorites. I think Kenneth Walker's going to have a big game. And like I said, the X factor for Michigan State to win this game is to put pressure on C.J. Stroud and then utilize that play action. I think Ohio State realizes, man, they're going to try to get the ball to Kenneth Walker all the time. So if I'm Michigan State, utilize that play action here. Utilize that. So I think that's going to be a great game. And obviously my Notre Dame Fighting Irish over trash Georgia Tech this year. Go Notre Dame, baby. It's college football. It's the Climate with Cam show. Let's go!